Hello friends, and welcome back to the shop. In this video, this is the third video in the Benjamin Mitchell Cob Modification series. We're going to be working on the shank and hopefully completing the shank. If you watched the last video, we shaped this bowl into a brandy shape, and now we need to make a shank that will mate up with that bowl smoothly, make a nice transition, but will also maintain the proper proportions and produce an effect that is brandy-like. And I have used the same method that I used when determining the dimensions of the bowl to determine the length of the shank, and that is about 1 1/4 inches. I've got a piece of walnut here that's actually 2 inches long, and the reason it's longer than 1 1/4 is that I'm going to need something to make a tenon in order to mate that into this this hole in the cob. And also, you'd never cut this exactly to length because you need some extra to hold it in the chuck on the lathe and so on. So I'm going to begin to do that. I'm going to drill it out and start some of the shaping, and I'll bring you back as that progresses. Alright friends, so after a bit of lathe work, this is what we now have. So I've turned the outer diameter to a roughly circular shape so that I could hold it in the chuck, and then I turned down this one end of it to make a tenon that would fit into the existing hole in the cob. So that's where we're at right now. Now obviously this is a very poor fit, so what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to be taking off material up here, which will allow this to go closer and closer, and we're going to do that until we can get a good junction down here. So this is going to take some time. We're not going to just cut it like this, but we're going to actually be wanting to curve it around so that we can also mate up on the sides. So this is going to be a lot of sort of slow carving. I will probably start that off with where is it? With a Dremel and a little sanding drum, just to sort of get it started, and I'll probably switch to some of those carving tools that you've seen me use in the past as I get closer, just to kind of refine the shape and bring it in. So this is not going to be terribly interesting to watch, and it's going to be a very slow process. Maybe I'll bring you back about halfway through and show you the progress made at that point and then finish it up. So I will see you shortly. Well folks, we've been doing a lot of carving work here, and hopefully you can see that this has been shaped, not just dished out here, but actually shaped in all 3 dimensions. So there's a bit of a lip here, and the goal is to get this to fit very flush with the rest of the cob itself. So right now we're getting pretty close to that. Put this together for you. You can see that from a top view we're pretty much there. Side view is pretty good. There's still some work to be done down here on the bottom. Now, I'm going to go a bit further, but not too far, because this is all going to be carved in order to get to the shape of a brandy. So I don't know how much of this is actually going to remain. Sorry, this part that's hanging out here is actually going to remain. So I'm not going to spend a great deal of time trying to fit that, but we're getting very close to where we need to be. Just a little bit more, close that gap up just a bit more, and we'll be ready to start shaping this. So I'll bring you back when that's done. Okay folks, so we're pretty much done with the fitting of the shank, and as you can hopefully see, we've got a pretty good fit all the way around there. The bottom is still out just a little bit, but as I mentioned, some of that's going to be carved away, so I don't want to do a lot of work on that if it's just going to wind up being carved away. If you're curious, the way that I did this was really pretty simple. I'm using these flex tools, which are really nice carving tools. They're very sharp, and I'm taking just some regular chalk and chalking up the face of this, pushing this on and wiggling it around a bit, and then that shows me where I'm making contact. and I can carve away the contact points and then put it on again, and just keep doing that over and over again. It's a slow process, but it works really well, and I haven't chalked this again, so it's a little bit light there, but basically what I'm finding now is that I'm making fairly even contact all the way around, and we're ready to proceed to the next part. So that's good. The next part is going to be to start to shape this, and what I've done is I've gone back to our drawing here, measured out this area here, which is the shank stem junction, and again, these measurements are the measurements of the picture, not the measurements of the pipe. But using those and some proportions and the size of the bowl here, I'm able to determine that I'm going to turn the end of this, and I should mention that it's important to do this kind of work while this is still round enough to fit into a chuck on the lathe. It just makes it a lot easier to do that. So I'll chuck this up, and then I'll turn this down to 5/8 is, I believe, the number that I came up with. Yes, 5/8. And that will be or something close to that. I'm not going to come to exactly 5/8 because I want to have some room to sand. But that's going to be essentially the final dimension for this end of the shank, where the stem is going to be made up. And then at that point I will fit the Delrin cap to this, and I will actually go ahead and make the stem blank and fit the stem blank to this, because I want to do all that while I can still hold this in the lathe. Once that's done, and I have the stem just sort of roughed out, I'm not going to do a lot of shaping on the stem just yet, I will then take this out of the lathe and do the final carving of this. So I'll bring this part down here up with a curve to meet that 5/8 both on the top and the bottom, hopefully getting something that approximates the shape of the brandy shank. So that's the next level of work here, and I think what we're probably going to do is get to the point where we have fit the Delrin mortise. Sorry if I said tenon earlier, it is a mortise. And then at that point we'll call this video to a close. So I will bring you back once that is all done. Well, folks, I'm having second thoughts regarding the Delrin tenon, and I wanted to bring you back and tell you what I'm thinking here, and this is going to be the last segment in this video. So I've turned this down to approximately 5/8, which is about the diameter that we're going to have here when the stem meets up. And the plan was to make a small Delrin mortise here, and that's to protect the walnut, because as I mentioned in a previous video, I'm not sure how this walnut is going to behave in terms of resistance to moisture and things like that. But as I looked at this, I realized that, you know, I'm using the practice that I used when I developed the Stubby Gentleman, and the shank on that is almost this diameter here, so it's a much larger diameter shank. And I realized that in order to put a Delrin mortise in here, I'm going to have to really thin this wall down quite a bit in order to sink it in there, and then have enough Delrin that I can drill the mortise that the stem is going to sit in. So really, I think I'm going to be doing more harm than good, because I'm going to be thinning this wall so much that I'm afraid it's going to crack. And I'd really rather that not happen, because this is clearly going to expand and contract as it heats up and cools down, and as it acquires moisture and dries out and so on. So thinning this down to the point where I could fit the Delrin in, I'm afraid it's just going to create a place where this is going to crack in the future. So in this case, I think we are better off not using the Delrin. So we're going to just stick with the walnut. We're going to do a straight sort of traditional fit of the vulcanite into the walnut. So at this point, that's about all the shaping I'm going to do until we can get the stem fit, and we'll go on from there. So I'm going to actually end this video at this point, and when we start back up, I'll begin to make a vulcanite stem blank. I'll take you through that process. We'll drill this out to accept the vulcanite stem, and we'll fit the stem to this. We'll sand those down together so that they're a nice seamless fit, and then we'll move on to the carving of the the shank into that brandy shape. So we're getting there. It's slow, but I hope you agree it's progressing nicely, and I think we're well on our way to having a very nice modified cob. So thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to follow on and you're not a subscriber, please do subscribe. If you like it, please go ahead and like, and I love comments, so by all means let me know what you think of what I've been doing, and if you have any suggestions, I'd love to hear about them. With that, I will sign off. Thank you all again, and take care of yourself, and I'll look forward to talking to you all again very soon. Goodbye now.